Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Real Football Talk. I'm your host Hassan. I have David and Adil with me. We'll be discussing England versus Poland, a narrow win for England, really. David, what was your take on that game and England
Shock-
narrowly winning?
Shocking. I thought it was appalling for a team that's meant to be full of talented players and who obviously are being touted, at least by our press, as having a chance of winning things. And as you know, if you watched the last show I was on, I really don't know the side. I don't watch them very often, and I don't know any of the England players because I don't watch Premiership football. I only watch Luton Town. But dismal, no pace, terribly suspect at the back, no meaningful threat that I could see apart from down the left wing through Chilwell overlapping and crossing. It seemed to me that the other creative players created nothing, and I was shocked, in a word. Yeah.
Adil, do you think it's? I mean, England looked really fluid in the first half. You could say they took the deserved lead in with a penalty. Really, their attack looked a bit fluid. But what seems to be the issue is that they're not moving the ball quick enough.
I thought in the first half, like I said, they dominated the game. I actually felt first half was really good performance. I liked the way, especially the combination between Mount, Foden, Sterling, and Kane. I thought the front four were interlinking quite well. But again, obviously, the problem is that they struggle to create clear-cut chances, and obviously, part of the problem is there's no one in the box a lot of the times when the ball goes out wide to Chilwell or Sterling. There isn't an obvious striker now. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay when you have players running in the box, but there's hardly anyone even making the runs in the box. So that's the problem. But when you already have a striker there, what he can do is he can manipulate the defenders, so he can move one of those defenders out of the way and that opens up the space for the winger or left back to play the ball into, much like the goal against Albania, the first goal. Because Kane was already in the box, he was able to manipulate the space in front by going towards the back. The defender followed him. Now, problem is when Kane comes so deep, he's not manipulating any of the two centre backs. So when Sterling looks up, there isn't actually there's no one in the box, but there's also no space to just hit that ball other than towards the back of the box.
Something there, Adil. When you just said when Sterling looks up, he doesn't look up. He just runs head down, and it works sometimes. It worked for the penalty. But actually, mostly he was incredibly ineffective. He made bad decisions quite often when he had time to think. That's the interesting thing. And he didn't play or hit the right options when he had time. He's very scary for defenders, I'm quite sure, when he's running at them. But because it was so packed, that box, he didn't really get that many opportunities, and mostly he didn't do very much. He's possibly a bit of a luxury, I'd have thought. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there is definitely a problem with end product. He doesn't really pick out a pass, and he does he does run with his head down a bit too much. For you know, especially a lot of the British media, they consider him world class. So it's something you wouldn't expect from a world class player, not being able to pick out a player. But yeah, definitely in the first half, even though he made some good runs and that caused problems, just the end product wasn't there.
Me too. That's all I can recollect that he did that created any meaningful threat. And that's, I mean, okay, 2 runs, if one of them results in a goal, is arguably sufficient return. But
well, he was lucky for the penalty in the sense that was incredibly poor defending, because he really ran out of space and the ball was pretty much going out.
Yeah,
so the defender was just, kind of panicked.
He perhaps panicked the defender into what happened, in fairness. But I agree. The run had clearly not gone anywhere. He had that other mazy run where he nearly got through. But to be honest, that run was never going to result in a goal because there were too many defenders. And once again, you have to say, was that the right thing to be doing? Would it be best?
The biggest criticism is the chance where he should have squared it to Foden, and it's an issue Sterling has, is he doesn't recognize when to send the pass. He always has to commit the defender so he ends up dribbling too close, and then the defender gets a touch. But the thing is, when it's 2 against 1, just send the pass. You don't need to commit a defender. It's already a overload situation. It's already 2 against 1, and the defender is already committed towards you. So there's nothing he could do if you just pass it. But he did then wanted to commit the defender even more, and ended up the defender getting a foot in on the pass. But those are the little things that they're huge in games, because that would have been 2-0 open goal.
It was a classic example of his inability to make the killer pass. I mean, that was appalling, in fact, wasn't it? I mean, I would be shocked if a Luton Town forward did what he did in those circumstances. You wouldn't be happy as a Luton fan. He's meant to be a world-class player. He just isn't, for my money.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is he's always looking to score first. He's not necessarily always playing the right options, because he's trying to maneuver the ball always to get a shot off. He misses the opportunities to send the pass a lot of the times.
But on that, Adi, sorry, what I want to say is, it's fair enough. Obviously, we can say blame all these players, etc. But Southgate, knowing that this is the formation kind of Poland going to play, he should have kind of adjusted the team a bit more, shouldn't he, to kind of counter that, because they know the box is going to be crowded. So having maybe 2 inside forwards not going to help, because there's so many players within that area.
I mean, I think the problem is how we touched on it against Albania. How deep Kane goes is a big problem now, because in that first half, especially when you're dominating the game, you have to play slightly more selfish. You don't need to come in and create an extra man in midfield, because you're dominating the game. Because Foden's coming in, you got Mount, Sterling, Chilwell, all high up the pitch, and again they're winning the pullback so quickly that Poland couldn't get out. So that's where the problem is Kane still has this tendency to get involved. And we said against Albania, no one's running in to occupy the space that he creates. But today, the centre backs were always following him out anyway. So it was kind of just a useless ploy in creating the extra man in midfield, because you're already keeping the ball, you're winning the ball back well. You need the numbers in the box. So I just think it's become something he's doing with Tottenham a lot, and now it's coming into England. I mean, he was doing it with England as well, but you got to recognize the moments when you're totally dominating the team and not do that, and be slightly less involved and more selfish.
I'm being disconcerted here a bit, Ardil, because when I look at your eyes, it looks like you're Darth Vader, because you've got the TV screen reflecting. And I'm finding it rather difficult to concentrate on what you're saying. But it's a good point. I mean, the other thing is that it was played almost at strolling pace, and the ball would get, the central defenders would play it out of defence. They'd play it out to, say, Chilwell or over to Walker, who'd then pass it back to them, and the speed at which an attack developed was glacial. So they had all this possession, but it didn't translate at any point in the game, even in the first half, into really many decent chances. Yes, there was the one where Foden should have been given the ball and he would have scored, but there was a remarkably little that the keeper had to do. They seemed so dominant.
It's similar to, again, Albania, where the chances, even that Foden chance, came from England winning the ball high up the pitch from the press. It's not really from creative play. It's from a counter attack, winning the ball high up the pitch. So really? It seemed like definitely. I actually don't believe creativity is a problem. I think problem is actually just getting players to commit to making runs into the box. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't score unless you have players in the box. You know, not every goal is going to be a wonder goal from outside the box. So you have to have players committing to getting into the box and making things, because the movement was there. Just on the edge of the box, you're seeing some nice movement, but none of those movement is to release someone who's making a run into the box. So I do think there's something they need to work on, definitely.
Do you think it's a personnel issue then? Do you reckon it's more to do with the personnel that are playing because they all like ball to feet?
Maybe. I mean, it seems like everyone wants to get involved in the play too much, and you know, there are too many playmakers. I mean, if you look at the way even Sterling, even though once he gets on the ball, he dribbles like a winger. He always wants the ball to feet, or you know, he doesn't make those runs in behind like he used to. And then you've got Foden, who's a playmaker. You got Mount, who's a playmaker. So you got too many players who want, and then you got Chilwell, who likes to dribble. So you got too many guys who want the ball at the feet and not enough movement in behind.
Do things instantly enough. I mean, it seems to me in midfield, the ball is doing the old Wilkins thing. It's going sideways endlessly. Hoofing it upfield is actually a legitimate tactic, even at this sort of level, because it unnerves people. The ball suddenly is arriving in your box, and you've got Harry Kane there. He can head it down. He can take a little knock, and a chance is created. But that wasn't happening. The ball was never delivered into the box. There was no focal attacks.
I think I think that's just the way the England team play now. They trust their ability to create those chances and stick to their principles of possession-based football and controlling the game. And you know, as long as they win, it's justified.
They're not going to win against good sides. Not playing in that fashion. They're not going to beat them because they. You know,
I think the problem is today's slightly different because Poland changed their formation 3-4 times. Paulo Sousa is quite flexible, so. You know, they started off with a 5-3-2, and then as soon as they were 1-0 down, they went to a 5-2, 5-2, and they moved one of the midfielders into the 10 position. So, and they're committing the wing backs more. So it became like a 3-4-3 really with the diamond back. So I just think. Yeah, I mean, second half they went too far at the back, went to a normal 4-2-3-1. They matched up with England, and it seems like that's where England had the problem, because as long as they had the extra man, extra deep line.
Seem to have lost him.
Well, there we are.
But David, this is a Poland team without their best striker.
Yes.
Considering that, and England still conceding and really kind of winning in the last 5 minutes, is that good enough? Is this something that we're gonna, you know, we're talking about a team with world-class players, so many attacking potential, potentially winning European Championship? Is this good enough?
Well, you know, listen, as you know, I hardly ever watch them, but looking at that game and the San Marino game, they don't look like world-class players to me. World-class players do things that opposition defenders just don't know what to do with. Now, in fairness to Sterling, who I've been very critical of, he did do it with that run, albeit the ball was going out of play and it was bad defending. But he is, I can see, scary to play against, except that he's perhaps too much of a luxury. The rest of them don't offer sufficient threat, it seems to me, to possibly be categorized as world class. Foden, I can see he's got amazing touches, but as I say, I think he looks too lightweight. If I watched him week in, week out, I'd form a different perception. But you know, when you see the great Italian teams, the great Brazilian teams, they've got players who just do wholly unexpected things, and this England team doesn't seem to be to have it, but they've also got the major disadvantage of a really wobbly looking defence. I do exempt Chilwell from that because I thought he played pretty well. There was one occasion where he was beaten for pace by the Polish winger in the second half, but generally speaking, he dealt comfortably. Maguire, I'm not sure. Maguire didn't have a fat lot to do. Stones looks, well, it was on more than one occasion looking pretty wobbly, and the keeper looks distinctly wobbly. So you've got a big issue there, and I don't see what they've got that is going to defeat a West Germany or a Brazil or an Italy.
I think the biggest problem is obviously in terms of the goalkeeper issue that you were saying. They haven't got Pickford, who's missing, who's really good on the ball and can have a calming influence in terms of moving the ball on.
really good is pushing it. I mean, it's risky.
No, I mean really good in terms of on the ball.
No, I think it's risky. I think he's similar, better than Pope, but he's similar.
He's the best player in terms of that type of player we have in England.
Yeah, he's more suited to it. But I think what I was alluding to is England struggled when Poland changed their formation and had players to press high up the pitch. And that's why they struggled in the second half, was because suddenly there's 4 players and you had players pressing on Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips. If you look at the first half, they had no one pressing them. Yeah. So what happened was they had the time to dominate the games. As soon as they were under pressure, suddenly they couldn't keep the ball. The composure wasn't there, and that's where the problem is in having 2 defensive mid who aren't comfortable opening out. I mean, Declan Rice, to be fair, is, and he did do it enough times, but Calvin Phillips hasn't got the confidence to open out. So what happens is he ultimately always puts the pressure on the centre backs, because you know it's going to be a wall back pass back into the centre backs or square onto the.
He looks a really ordinary player to me, Phillips. Declan Rice in the first half played very well, didn't he?
Yes. I thought Declan Rice in the first half was our best player in terms of how often he was winning the ball, reading the play, taking risks, creating attacks. He was quite confident, and I was happy how much he was playing the ball forward. I think the problem with Calvin Phillips is that his best qualities is reading the play and winning the ball back. But then when you're playing in a possession dominating team like England are, you become a problem, because you're not as comfortable on the ball as you should be, or you're only comfortable playing back towards goal and playing the ball square and back. But then what happens is when the opposition have got players to press that pass that you play back, it creates problems like the goal we saw today, where, obviously Stones should not be taking a touch out. It was obvious he should have played it back to the keeper, and then Pope should have hoofed it. But that whole mindset is the defenders are trying to take more risks, because you got a player who can't get the ball out. So suddenly the whole team starts feeling the pressure of, we can't build momentum. The ball's always in our half. So then what happens, the defenders start taking risks that they shouldn't be. And that's partly because you got 2 defensive mid, and one of them is not comfortable taking the ball side on.
Who would be a replacement for Phillips then? Is there anyone?
Well, I think normally it'd be Henderson, but he's injured at the moment. So I do think he's filling, but there are other players. So like England doesn't have other central midfielders who can play actual central mid role. But I think that's the problem. Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice are both CDMs, and you're asking Calvin Phillips to play a different style to the style he plays at Leeds, and he's very good at that role when he plays for Leeds. But you're asking him to be a bit more of a central midfielder for England. Well, he's struggling. Yeah,
it seems inevitable if you've got 2 midfielders playing simultaneously.
Well, as the first half showed, it's fine when teams don't press on you. But as soon as Poland changed their formation, it became a problem, because you can't give it to Calvert-Lewin, because he's not comfortable with it under pressure.
Although Arguably, it still wasn't fine in the first half because, as I maintain, we really didn't make many chances, not given the absolutely colossal amount of possession we had. And, you know, to be in with a shout of winning things, you have got to be able to break down a resolute defence. And we didn't really look as though we had any idea at all how to do that.
Yeah, I think England definitely missing a player like Rashford, someone who's happy to run in behind, run into the box. I think the style that they play really needs one of the inside forwards running in, because Kane is so fixated on dropping in and creating that space. So at the moment, it's not gelling well. I mean, we touched on it in the last podcast that England's attack ain't gelling well, maybe because of the personnel. That there's no one really running in and occupying the space that Kane creates.
I mean, the problem then becomes if you got Rashford on the left, then are you moving Sterling to the right, or does Sterling not get in?
I don't know, because obviously it depends on it. Like if they play the five at the back, they normally go with Sterling and Rashford, or maybe one of them needs to get dropped. I mean, I think it's fair to say that that really, you know, Sterling isn't quite doing enough, in my opinion.
But brilliantly as a super sub. Doesn't look to me to be the play you really want to start a game, because he he's so rarely does anything that is absolutely concrete, makes these mazy runs that go nowhere. That's a very dangerous thing to have for a defender to face late in a game when maybe they're tiring a little bit.
I mean, Southgate's been very loyal to Sterling. Like, Sterling and Kane are like his main two strikers or attackers. He's never dropped really Sterling. And now it looks like Mount's another shoe-in who's a guarantee for the 10th spot. So I think, it's hard to see where Rashford fits in, but I do think England lacks a player who's willing to run in. So, unless they get Sterling playing that role again, they will continue to struggle to create clear-cut opportunities, even though they may play well and dominate a game. I mean, I still felt after they conceded, England did step on the gas, and they really showed good conviction in the tackles. They went really physical. They started to win the ball back higher, dominating the game. So the tempo was improved after they conceded, and they showed that will to win. And ultimately they were dominating and getting on the outside, even though they weren't creating clear-cut chances.
You certainly couldn't criticise them for not winning the second ball, because they won it and they won it and they won it and they won it. And that effort and skill. Very often,
I thought they were lucky with a few decisions. I thought there's a couple of potential fouls on Poland players on the counter attack, but the main thing was England, really stepped on the gas and tried. They got physical and they found a way to win. And that's the main thing, is the pressure told at the end.
But this is what I wanted to ask. David, can we look at this as a positive, really, in the sense that, yeah, we went one. They came back, went 1-1, and we showed character and determination to come back. And maybe this is the kind of like the kick in the backside that they need for them to really kick on and realize, you know what, there's more to us.
Well, either they will do that, or they'll say, this system got us a win. And I'm feeling that if they take that view, you can write off in any major tournament. Yes, they showed, in inverted commas, the character to come back and get a win. But let's face it, it was a corner. It was a corner where there were two. It was a brilliant strike from Maguire, absolutely fantastic strike. And Stones did very well to get the ball back to him. But I just had this feeling that actually it was overall badly that really they shouldn't have let that goal in, that Stones shouldn't have been allowed to get it across in the manner that he did, and Maguire should have been blocked, or even possibly, because the keeper more or less got a hand to it, that should have done a little bit better at keeping it out. straight at him, more or less.
But I think that's what pressure does. That's what constant pressure.
Was no pressure in the second half.
Because the thing was, they were camped in their own half and they couldn't get out. It was, once England really got that momentum, they really camped Poland in. And these players are used to not having to defend the whole time. So then they feel that pressure. And I think that's what makes the players or the defenders make mistakes when this,
I didn't think there was any meaningful pressure in the whole of the second half, including when they got the goal. I mean, they didn't. Poland looked actually as likely, if not more likely, to score than us if you take that half as the second half in totality. And even when we tried to up the pressure, we didn't really create anything except get that corner from which we scored.
I mean, pressure as in the players, Poland players will feel the pressure of not actually getting out of their own half. Because they're being trapped in their own half, England were winning the ball back. That creates mental pressure in the sense that there's no break for the team.
They were getting out of their own half in the second half, Polish players. I mean, they were having...
It was fast breaks. It's not like the whole team was able to actually keep possession. It was like they're going for a quick counter-attack and England was stopping it. So it's not like they're actually changing the momentum and keeping that ball and getting a breather as such. So I don't mean pressure as in the press. It's more as in just getting out of that block mentality of defense all the way, defend. Because that takes a lot of concentration. When you're in that mode of just defending for your life, that takes a lot of energy because you're just concentrating. And, I actually felt like England were knocking on the door. Even though they were struggling to create chances, they were getting enough pressure, enough crosses in. Once they just, once they got over that initial, 10 minutes of conceding where they looked still a bit rattled by the equalizer, after that, it just felt like, okay, they can definitely get through this and they can definitely get a result.
What would have happened if Poland had a go? You think they'd have been massacred?
I think so, because the way this England team is set up, there's a lot of playmakers. So if there was gaps, that's when they could expose the gaps and the space left in. So I do think, part of the reason why England found it easy to dominate in the first half was because they went to one defensive midfielder. In the second half, when they matched up to England's system, they couldn't do that quick link-up play in the central zone. So then everything was just constantly staying out wide and long shots really from out wide. They couldn't do anything, build anything in the central zone. But in the first half, Foden was coming in and playing like a 10 and doing a few link-ups. I mean, it wasn't often. And again, it's because England weren't really going for the killer instinct of getting a second goal and a third goal to really ram home their advantage. I mean, that's the thing that would concern me is they've had 3 games against teams that have largely defended for at least the majority of the game, and they don't seem to have that killer instinct of just, it's like they get the early goal and they're happy to kind of just play nice possession-based football and not go for the kill. So I do think that's a big worry.
Yes.
But I don't know. I think England just in general, if you look at their squad, they've got excellent young talented players, but they lack players with proven track record. Even if you look at Harry Kane, who I would still say is a proven goal scorer, he hasn't won anything. So he hasn't gone through that hurdle, and so there's generally a lack of know-how. I mean, you got the Man City players, but when you look at Sterling, he's never been a prolific player. I mean, he scored goals, but a lot of them are tap-ins. It's the system that has given Sterling a lot of the goals, not that he's got great finishing. So they do lack cutting edge.
I think if Sterling in any major tournament, he's always looked pretty poor. And I mean, he has not been very devastating in the major tournaments, and he's sort of one of those players that is easy on the eye, but actually isn't really that well. He just isn't that effective.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we could say that about a lot of the English players in terms of, like Adil kind of mentioned, there's not enough know-how and enough players that actually want things, because that's a major mental obstacle in itself, because that's what's going to kind of take you to that next level. Until you've done it, you wouldn't know how to get over that barrier. So I think Adil is spot on in that sense, really.
I think Henderson's the big miss in this squad. I really do, because he's won the Premiership. He's a leader at Liverpool. I think he's a big miss, and he's the one player who's comfortable playing the ball over the top, in behind, and that's a ball we don't seem to have anymore.
Yeah,
in our game. So I think there are few key personnel that, as soon as they're not in this England team, we look quite substandard, because the players we replace them with are, ultimately some of them are mid-table Premiership teams players. They're not playing champions. They're not playing at elite level. Calvin Phillips hasn't played Champions League. He's not playing at that elite level. So there will be that gap in but I still see him as a player who will improve. I think he will get better at, just like we see with Declan Rice. I mean, from last year to this year, he's improved.
I thought he was pretty good. I was quite impressed with him. Yeah. I like, and the commentators were saying they wanted him to see on Jesse Lingard. I mean, when I've seen Jesse Lingard play, he's always done things. Now, I haven't seen him week in, week out in the Premiership, so maybe he isn't all that effective on a week-by-week basis. But when he plays for England, he's always up there.
I mean, on current form, he's definitely the form player in the squad. But for me, I find him quite similar to Sterling, in the sense that a lot of the times when he plays on instinct, he's really good. His finishing is excellent when he plays on instinct. The moment he has time to think, he's ineffective like Sterling. So I wouldn't pin so much onto Lingard personally. I think he still lacks that end quality, that quality that we're saying is world class.
Yes, we have, the great sides always have someone like who was the German player in the 90s, big tall Matthias, and Beckenbauer, and the Uruguayans had, who was the guy? No, he was their forward. I'm trying to think of the Pirlo for Italy. These brilliant playmakers, and it is the question of them going on mazy runs. They just see where to put the ball. It's about football intelligence, and none of our players seem to me to have that. Foden's got this balletic quality. Little touches are something to behold. I now see, having seen him play twice. Mason Mount seems to run around a lot without really having any massive penetrative skill, or so it seems to me on the basis of 2 matches. And we haven't got one of those sort of clearly almost intellectuals who can tear opposition apart by hitting that killer pass into the right leg. No one's doing that. Trevor Brooking used to do it a bit. He was a second. None of the existing players seem to me to do that. I
think the player who has the most ability in creating clear-cut chances in the England team is probably Jadon Sancho, but he's not in this. He was injured for this one, so I think there is a lack of players who can do that killer pass and that control the game and kind of be a maestro in dictating the tempo of the game. There isn't really anyone in England at the moment who plays that way. So I just think this England team is
not the playmaker. Is that, I mean, they are, those players I've named strike me as being the football equivalent of an American football quarterback. Everything goes through them. And it's their ability to drop that devastating ball on a sixpence to somebody that turns games. Whereas we huffed and we puffed and we huffed and we puffed and we barely breached the penalty area.
But I think, I mean, there's no point having a quarterback if you don't have a wide receiver running and running in behind. And the current problem is every player in this England team is a playmaker. They're coming through the ball, no one's running behind. So I would say, even if we had that player, the current style wouldn't benefit that player. He'd have no one to send it to.
I think
I definitely agree with your point. We're lacking that creative spark.
Thank you, Adil. Thank you, David. I mean, some great points. Obviously, clearly, England's missing some personnel. But thank you both for coming on. We're going to end it here. So thank you both. And guys, do keep watching and follow, like, subscribe. Thank you.